Boom. Welcome, folks. Welcome to the pre-show. It is a minute and a half past the top of the hour. We've got about a minute and a half in it. Station over at Odyssey Radio. So that's our show topic tonight, Friday Night Talkin'. How about that? So good evening to you, one and all. Look at that. I haven't even looked in a mirror until I just now saw the monitor. I've been out and wind tossed the windows open in the car, running all over the place. So there you go. There I am. And it's as good as it gets tonight on a Friday night. So how you all doing? I think we're all
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Aha! I have found it. Somewhere along the way, my soundboard became unplugged. Can you hear me now? I might have to reset everything here. Hold on. Boom, boom, boomity, boom, boom, boom. It says my audio. Boom. It says I got audio. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? My soundboard became unplugged. Not from the outlet because all my lights were on. All my levels were set. The backside got unplugged from the computer, so it was not carrying my sound. I didn't realize that. So there we are. You should be having sound now. Sorry about that. It's now 9:05. We're 5 minutes into the broadcast, and if you're listening on the radio station, that blank spot was me. My soundboard became unplugged from the back of my computer. So sorry about that, folks. Everything looked good to go. So I just want to say welcome to the program. This is me, Scotty Roberts. This is my show, the Intrepid Radio program, right here on Odyssey Radio. You can find the audio format of this show only because it's a radio station over at the radio station. Go to Odyssey Radio, ODY radio.com. And you can listen to just the audio version of this show. If you want to see the video simulcast, you can come on over to, and it's funny, you know what? I was doing the pre-show and I didn't see anybody say they couldn't hear me. Maybe I just wasn't looking. So, but we had about a minute and a half to 2 minutes there. So that's too bad. Sorry about that for those of you who tuned in after 9:03. And Daisy McHenry says, no Scotty Roberts either. Well, you can probably hear me now. Hear you and see you. Boom. That's good. So you can come over to my YouTube channel and you can join the chat room there. If you're listening by radio, you can turn on the chat room as well. And you can watch it over on the chat room and join the chat while you're listening on the radio. So it's all depends on whatever you want to do. After the top of the hour, when this show is over at 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern, you can join the Captain's Cabin. And there we can talk and have a little go at it for Friday night. And let's see, what else was I talking about? I was talking about other things, and I can't think of what they are now. So I want to welcome you to the program. I was going to say go over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/Scotty Roberts, if you want to help support this show and see us do some bigger and better things as we go. So far, we're bringing in just enough money to cover some of the basic costs of airing the show. If we can get beyond that point, gain followers, gain more members, throwing in that $4 a month or more, some of you, we can do some cool things with this show. And that'll come as we go. I was hoping it's like time served. I've been doing this for 20 years. Let's see if we can take the last few months and start growing over the next few months and make this show something that we can do some much better things, much more expanding with. And thank you very much. Bake sale is needed, says Field Guy. Maybe so. Maybe so. Pre-show was fine, says Randall Flagg. That's good, Randall. I was apparently gone for a few minutes of it. So, oh, wait a second. Maybe my computer mic was picking me up for the pre-show. Aha! The computer mic, I'll bet, was the internal mic. Defaulted when the soundboard became unplugged. But when we go out to the radio station, the stream will only pick up this microphone. That's what happened. All right, there we go. Problem solved. Mystery resolved. I wanted to read the big intro of this book, The Pirate Hunter by Richard Zacks. It's the true story of Captain Kidd. And I just want to spend a couple of minutes reading this. I think you would really enjoy this book. And that's why I grabbed it. And I had this book once and it disappeared. And I got this at some kind of sale. It's an old library book that was discarded. So if you're wondering, I didn't check that out. I own it for like 25 cents or something like that. So The Pirate Hunter. And the book starts like this. I'm going to take a few minutes and read this before we get into Talkin' Friday Night Talk. Here's the prologue of The Pirate Hunter. I could hold it up like that so you can see the cover while I read it, but then I can't see, the light's not hitting it right. In a cold jail cell in Boston, in Massachusetts Bay Colony, on November 16th, 1699, a weather-beaten man with hard-scarred features unbuttoned his trousers. Two men stood nearby. One wore a skull cap. The prisoner, tanned on his face and arms only, lifted his shirt tail, exposing himself. Back then, men didn't wear underwear per se, but rather tucked long shirts afore and behind, hammocking their genitals. When James Gilliam lifted his penis to view, the two observers caught a whiff of the man's recent recreations. The night before, as the governor later quaintly put it in a letter to the Board of Trade, Gilliam had been treating two young women some few miles off in the country. Colonial authorities accused him of being a member of the crew of Captain Kidd, then the most notorious pirate in the nascent British Empire, and of hiding his treasure on Gardiner's Island along Kidd's ample hoard. 2 witnesses, in addition, identified Gilliam as the pirate who earlier in his career slit the throat of an English East India Company captain and stole his ship. Despite the growing body of evidence and accusation, Gilliam absolutely denied everything, right down to his name, saying he was not Samson Marshall, or saying he was Samson Marshall, a respectable merchant. He claimed it was all a case of mistaken identity. But the witnesses added a detail that Governor Bellamont thought might hang the scoundrel. They said they had heard that Gilliam had been captured years earlier by the Moors on the coast of India and forcibly circumcised. In the late 17th century, an era when only Jews and Muslims clipped the foreskin, this was considered an almost singularly identifying mark, as good as a zigzag scar on the cheek or a missing ear. Hence this odd moment in American colonial jurisprudence. It goes on. The reports of the 2 jailhouse experts have survived and are still filed away at the Public Records Office in London. I, Joseph Franzen, of full age, being of the Jewish nation, by both his parents declareth, I did search Gilliam, and found that he has been circumcised, but not after the manner practiced by the Jews, according to the Levitical law, the prepuce being taken off round. Whatever that means. I think it's just the shape of the scar left after removing the foreskin. So the second testimony stated, I, John Cutler of Boston, observed Triugen, I don't know who that is, Chirurgian, do declare that I find the said Kelly, alias Gilliam, has been circumcised, which he himself also acknowledgeth, saying that his father was a Jew and his mother was a Christian, and after the death of his father, his mother intermarried with a Christian, and then he was baptized. But so far I'm able to discern, I am of opinion he was circumcised since he was grown up into his years. End of quote. Gilliam's scar was an oval loop tilted front to back, unlike any circumcision scar either expert had ever seen before. Apparently Gilliam had flinched at the moment of religious conversion. Governor Bellamont, the highest-ranking official in the Northeast, was now convinced he had arrested the right man. He shipped Gilliam aboard the Royal Navy HMS Advice to England to stand trial. The governor, who'd once commented, I protest that I am quite tired out of taking pains for the public without any profit to myself, tracked down Gilliam's gold on Gardiner's Island and reluctantly shipped it also over to the Admiralty. He placed a claim for 1/3 of the booty as Vice Admiral of the Sea. Gilliam was locked up in London's Newgate prison before being carried to Old Bailey along with 23 other accused pirates. In a one-day trial, the jury, with ample help from the panel of periwigged judges, pronounced 21 pirates guilty. Ye and each of you are adjudged and sentenced to be carried back to the place from whence you came, and from thence to the place of execution, and there within the flood marks to be hanged by the neck till you are dead, dead, dead. And the Lord have mercy on yourselves. That was a quote, by the way. On Friday, July 12th, 1700, James Gilliam and 9 others boarded carts from the stinking prison of Newgate and headed through the crowded afternoon streets of London to Execution Dock in Wapping, through Cheapside and past Tower Hill. Watching him were not just the rabble on the cobblestones, but aristocrats perched in the balconies. Some of the street crowd took the opportunity to bombard the prisoners with filth, eggs, dead cats, excrement, and shout such cheery invocations as, "You'll piss when you can't whistle," and "Be ye doing the sheriff's dance?" An execution in London was a day of celebration, a day of riot and idleness, as one guidebook put it, but ballasted by enough pomp and circumstance to salve the consciences of the executioners. The procession followed a mounted sheriff carrying the symbolic silver oar of the Admiralty. It stopped at the edge of the north bank of the Thames and then proceeded on foot down the stone steps. The scaffold was built upon the actual riverbed at low tide, so that the English authorities, sticklers over the minutiae of jurisprudence, could state that the Admiralty performed the execution within its watery jurisdiction. Pleasure boats crowded the shore. As Gilliam was led forward, he could hear hawkers peddling his dying confession, dated the day before, and it was a pack of lies, some other man's life, but the printers didn't exactly fear a lawsuit from rogues like Gilliam. The broadsheet ended sanctimoniously, "I hope my sad fate will be a warning to all lewd seamen and notorious pirates whatsoever." All the 10 condemned men were led upon a crudely built scaffold to the jeers of the crowds. Each man was trussed up with ropes, securely lashing his elbows together behind his back. No one was tied at the wrist because a dying man might, in sheer desperation, succeed in rolling his hands free. A noose was placed around the neck of each of the convicted pirates. Their feet were purposely not tied to afford that well-beloved to the crowd dance upon, sir. The priest assigned a new gate, Paul Lorraine, recited a prayer for salvation. Now the prisoners were encouraged to confess their sins. Some did, most didn't. But in the recollection of Paul Lorraine, as published the following day, "Beware sham papers!" They all confessed, even the dour drunk Frenchman. Now came the crowd's silence for the psalm. Pirates whose lips had mainly mouthed bawdy ditties were primed for one final holy chorus as they stood on Execution Dock, with the Tower of London looming in the distance to the west. Apparently they sang with gusto. Satirist Ned Ward noted in his Wooden World that a thief at the gallows will sing forth with as pleasant a note as a sailor calling out the markings on a plumb line as a ship enters a tricky harbor that is loud and clear. The sheriff's men yanked the blocks out from under the scaffold floor. The platform toppled to the ground, but the condemned men fell only a few inches. Their ropes were purposely left short so their necks wouldn't break and they would slowly strangle to death. It was that spastic dance, lasting sometimes as long as 15 minutes, that the drunken crowd savored. It was the slow empurpling of the face that delighted in glimpsing of the ever-spreading stain upon the trousers as the last gulped liquor exited the bladder. Once dead, the piemen packed up their trays. James Gilliam and the other pirates were cut down and tied to posts. Tradition dictated that 3 tides of Thames water must rise and fall over their heads before the execution was officially complete. Some poor sheriff's helper, with a shilling or two for drink, would have to sit at the river's edge and guard the corpses so the souvenir hunter wouldn't clip off a body part or a button to cage a pint at the alehouse. James Gilliam's waterlogged body was then cut away from the slimed pole. The carpenter's boys slathered the cold corpse in hot tar, popped it on a specifically built iron gibbet or cage. The caged corpse was carried by boat to Gravesend at Hope Point to hang at an unavoidable spot along the nautical corridor to London. The tar was to deter the gulls and other birds eager to peck. Nonetheless, after a few months, Gilliam became a ghastly corpse, a chunk of flesh missing here and there, an exposed cheekbone, both eyeballs gone, the penis now perhaps more than circumcised, a dread warning, courtesy of the Admiralty to sailors contemplating the merry life of piracy. At the time of Gilliam's capture, the combined power of the Royal Navy of the East India Company and the governments of half a dozen American colonies were all conspiring to bring Captain Kidd of New York City and Dundee, Scotland, to the same gallows in the harbor. England, on the verge of empire, planned to show the world what it would do to a man who dared to steal in the name of the king. Captain Kidd was gone down in history as America's most ruthless buccaneer. Fabulously rich, building treasure up and down the eastern seaboard. I, for one, 10 years old, reading by flashlight, pictured Kidd fierce, mustachioed, downing rum, slicing the air with his cutlass, burying boys to guard his treasure for eternity. Washington Irving described Kidd as somewhat of a trader, Trader, something more of a smuggler, with a considerable dash of the picaroon. Robert Louis Stevenson placed Kidd's anchorage on the creased vellum map of Treasure Islands. Edgar Allan Poe in the Gold Bug rummaged through Kidd's chest. As the rays of the lantern fell within the pit, there flashed upwards from a confused heap of golden jewels a glow and glare that obviously dazzled our eyes. More recently, Nelson DeMille, in his bestseller Plum Island, used Kidd's hideout in the climax of his ecological thriller. But the novelists and the historians and relentless treasure hunters have gotten it all wrong. Master Mariner William Kidd, who lived at 56 Wall Street, was no career cutthroat, no cartoon Blackbeard. Terrifying his prey by putting flaming matches in his hair, Kidd was a reputable New York sea captain, empowered by a secret commission from the King of England to hunt pirates, confiscate their wealth, and divvy the spoils among his investors. The venture looked so promising in the planning stages that some of the most powerful lords of London and wealthiest merchants of America lined up to back his voyage and await the shower of gold. King William III, in exchange for his signature, took a 10% share. The King of England was an investor in Captain Kidd. But as is the way with these clandestine missions, the whole plot blew up in their faces. Kidd's task turned out to be far more difficult than expected. He would have to travel in a lone ship manned by a desperate crew, which included pirates, searching the vast Indian Ocean for one of the 5 European pirate ships then active. He would have to ignore the claims of the merchants who owned the stolen goods, and as soon as he set out toward the tip of Africa, he would find himself unwelcome, distrusted by the Royal Navy, and despised by the English East India Company, who almost immediately claimed that the pirate hunter had turned pirate. The great irony is that Captain Kidd fought very hard to remain honorable, but was branded by the actions of his crew, and on his head was dumped all the piracies of the era. When rumors of Kidd's crimes began to spread, damaging England's valuable trade with India, Kidd's backers, including King William, all raced to cover their blue blood asses and disavow any knowledge of his mission. Did anyone want to know the truth? Or was it easier to kill the New Yorker and be done with it? The doings of this feisty American unleashed an enormous political scandal that rocked the New World and the Old, and threatened to tip the subcontinent of India to the Maharajas. If the accusations that the king backed a corporation of pirates were proven true, it could engender King William's perch upon the throne, King William's perch upon the throne, and could cost Kidd's lordly backers their lives for committing treason. These happenings are not fiction, but the real-life intrigue and double cross based on the 152-page trial record. Hundreds of letters, depositions from the likes of John Gardner of Gardner's Island, where Kidd actually hid some of his treasure during an attempt to clear his name. I've spent the last 3 years tracking down the flesh and blood Captain Kidd, following the paper trail through logbooks, trial transcripts at the Public Record Office in London, and traveling in his wake to the faraway pirate paradise of St. Marie's Island off of Madagascar. As I followed Kidd, another character kept elbowing his way upon the stage. Kidd's long-forgotten nemesis, Robert Culliford. It's uncanny how the lives of these two men intertwined and how they became locked in a kind of unscripted duel across the oceans of the world. No one has ever written in detail about Culliford. His entry in a respected nautical compendium states, Culliford, captain of the Mocha. Little is known of him except that one day in the streets of London he recognized and denounced another pirate called Burgess. Even that snippet, turns out, was wrong. One morning, while sifting through a folder full of 17th century documents, I stumbled across the diary of a prisoner held 11 months aboard Culliford's pirate ship. And though it began to emerge as an authentic picture of a pirate's life, Culliford didn't fly a creepy skull and crossbones, but rather a blood-red flag that meant no mercy unless you surrender immediately. His surgeon was named John Death. He once ordered his men to haul the china dishes off a captured ship and load them into the cannons to shred the sails of his next adversary. Culliford lived the pirate life. Kidd tried to tightrope his way between piracy and respectability. One would hang in the harbor, the other would walk away with the treasure. That, my friends, is the introduction, the prologue to The Pirate Hunter, a fantastic book that you must read. Richard Zacks wrote this book. It's the true story of Captain Kidd. I read this the first time about 20 years ago and was enthralled by this book. It's got all the drama of a movie. You can tell just by the prologue itself. It's written history. It's got transcripts of the trials of Captain Kidd. And it's as intriguing as can be, and it's a very good read. So I would highly recommend it. And I wanted to open up tonight by reading that to you. Richard Zacks, The Pirate Hunter, the true story of Captain Kidd. You're going to have to get it and read it for yourself. I hope you enjoyed that. It's a good book. Now, let's move on. I must not have captivated a lot of people with that reading. We have about half the people we had this time the other night. But that's okay. You're all here. Those of you who are here, welcome. Those of you who are listening on radio, welcome. Those of you who are in the chat room, welcome. Morgan Snow, good to see you. Randall Flagg, good to see you. Barbie D, Steve Clark, good to see you. Field Guy, good to see you. Who else we got? We got, let's see, blah, 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 blah. Viking Off-Roading, that's Michael. Good to see you. And Rocky Stucci Media. He says, cannoli. I say, yo, Rocky. Everyone else, shut up. Rocky's in the room. Let's see. Who else we got? We got Daisy McHenry. We talked to you a little earlier when the sound was out. I was unplugged and didn't realize it. Let's see. Who else is in the room? Kelly Bell is here. And those of you who were here early during that first 5 minutes before I even realized that the soundboard, which was on, had become unplugged from the back from the computer. So we were not broadcasting. And I did not know that. So hopefully radio audience stuck around as well. And I welcome everybody who's here. Those of you who are not in the chat room, feel free to come on in and join us. And you can join in the chat this evening. And the topic I kind of chose for tonight, I didn't have a real topic I wanted to get into, as you can tell by the title of tonight's show. If you didn't see it, here I'll take my banner off and show you. Here's tonight's graphic: Friday Night Talkin'. Just wanted to get on. I didn't have a major topic, although I have 10 major topics going in my head at all times. I didn't know what I really wanted to get into for tonight. So I just thought, let's do just a little talking tonight. We'll do a little fun, maybe hit some of the current events. That's why I grabbed The Pirate Hunter and read the prologue of that book for you. Hopefully you'll go out and get it. I don't make anything off of it, so I'm promoting it only because it's a good book. Thank you, Daisy. It's one of those Friday evenings, too, that is, it's about 70 degrees. The humidity is down. Fall is in the air and coming soon. Christmas is only 4 months away, believe it or not. Let's see, is that right? August to September, October, November, December. Yeah, 4 months away. Thanksgiving, 3 months away. Halloween, 2 months away. Well, 6 weeks away. 6 weeks. It'll be Halloween. We could have snow up here already at Halloween, which we have had snow in the air or downright thick, heavy snowfalls by Halloween. I love this time of year. And I love what it does. I love the way it is. And I wanted to talk about a little bit of current events. And this isn't all my own content. I pulled some of this from Glenn Beck. And I think this is worth having us go through some of this, because I want you to hear some of this, because I think this is important. So I want you to stick with me. Now, this, you can look at this and go, oh, that is so politically laden. And it might be. Maybe not politically. I would call it common sense laden. And so as we read some of this, I want you to, and go through some of these things I'm going to present to you, I want you to think about this. What just happened this last week? What's one of the big things in the news? One of the big things in the news, of course, is that they are planning to do an impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden. And I hear all kinds of things. I've seen all kinds of things coming out in the news from the leftist media that is going to tell you, you can't charge. There's no evidence for Joe Biden. The problem is, we all know that's a lie. And we're not calling it a lie, but we're letting people get away with that crap. We all know that Joe Biden is corrupt. And had he not become president, this would never have come out in the forefront the way it has. He'd have gone into his retirement and it'd have been done. Yeah, I like Glenn Beck a lot, Daisy. I think, the humidity up here, field guy, not down there. But Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Tuesday of this week announced that the House of Representatives would open up this formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. And the inquiry comes, frankly, comically late, as Biden's rampant corruption has been evident for years. But it's nice when the right, or at least Republicans, at least pretend to fight against the left. It's kind of nice to see every now and then. And the inquiry is unlikely to go anywhere, despite Biden's obvious guilt, and we all know he's guilty. And if the Republicans were any form of serious political opposition, they'd be using their formal power of the purse to defund the administration's partisan and malicious abuse of agencies like the FBI. Now, while impotent half measures from GOP leadership are unsurprising, the far more interesting aspect of all the news about this cycle was that the response from the left and its media lickspittles hit the public eye. Shortly after McCarthy made his announcement of the impeachment inquiry on Tuesday, the White House, get this, folks, the White House rushed out a memo to the press instructing them to increase the scrutiny that they were applying to the charges. The amazing thing was watching how quickly and how blatantly the press complied with the White House order in real time. That's what I want you to take note of. What was the purpose of the press? Isn't it to keep the government in check? Just to report freedom of the press? Not to have the White House telling the press how they should present the news. So this memo went out, and I'd heard about this memo earlier in the week. And by the way, there was no attempt to hide the memo. It went right out. Keep pressure on degrading these charges in the news. And so after the memo's release, media outlets reported on these instructions from the Biden administration as if they were breaking news. The White House has ordered us to, and outlets including CNN, NBC, and Axios dutifully echoed the sentiments of the letter from the White House while reporting it. And Politico's Heidi Przybyla, I don't even know how to pronounce her name, Przybyla, she's lacking vowels in her name, followed her announcement of the memo's existence with a Twitter thread that fact-checked the claims of the inquiry made by the GOP, just as the administration had ordered her to do. Neoconservative and Trump derangement syndrome patient David Froome eagerly retweeted the whole thread. And not to be outdone, CNN, having just revealed that the White House had ordered reporters to attack the impeachment inquiry, produced its own fact check to comply with the demands of the regime. There's a good arrangement to be had over whether a free press has ever really held government power in check. But today, you can be certain of one thing. That assertion is beyond laughable. Professor Bauer, how you doing? The prostitutes are under control of the political class, he says, and need dismantling like the government. Isn't that the truth? So there was a political theorist, Curtis Yarvin, and his concept of the cathedral, he called it, which is a way to model the decentralized network of prestige, influence, and information that drives the political will of our current regime. Now, there's been a lot of time that's been spent explaining how that whole system works and how the right can use that model to understand the manner in which power is wielded. And under Yarvin's model, power doesn't reside primarily in the formal organs of government, but rather in the story that informs the values of our ruling class. University is the core formative experience that all ruling elites share. And those prestigious schools shape the morality and the worldview of every person who enters the halls of power. Journalists don't see themselves as neutral arbiters of truth, but as zealous crusaders against injustice who reinforce the narrative they learned in university with every stroke of their pens, or tap of their keyboards, if you will. The functionaries who fill government bureaucracies don't see themselves as servants of the average voter, but as transformative agents whose purpose is to engineer the deplorables of red America, red meaning right America, red and blue states, red America, into compliant progressive cultists. We are compliant progressive cultists. That's what we must be turned into. The university grads who populate the management of every Fortune 500 company don't see themselves as businessmen, but as representatives for racial justice and equality. And the shared value system means that while there's no formal government propaganda apparatus in the United States, all of the country's major institutions, both public and private, end up pursuing the same goals and spouting the same platitudes. There is no department of propaganda other than our major institutions and the press. And while this distributed network of influence is less efficient than an explicit organ of state propaganda, it has some distinct advantages. Change was slower, but also felt much more organic. People were more likely to feel the social attitudes, which were being pushed from on high, were actually emergent from the shifting tastes of the popular will. So they got us believing. Maintaining this kind of soft power is very difficult, requiring a really high degree of skill and subtlety, but it's also proven far more resilient than the more direct methods of propaganda. So in a system where popular sovereignty is the only acceptable legitimizing mechanism of governmental power, control of public opinion is key. Was it William Randolph Hearst over 100 years ago said something about how he would make the news and sway the world. You could change the world with your headlines, was kind of what he said. I'll make the news and I'll change the world by it. The left's hegemony, I've never been able to pronounce that word right. Hegemony. There you go. Over mass media and education provided all the tools that were necessary to insert ideas into the public consciousness and wait patiently, nudging and prodding when necessary until the people believed that this is what they wanted all along. Remember the series we were on last week about stolen children? The minds of our children are being stolen by our institutions of higher education, lower education, elementary school too. People started believing that this is what they wanted all along. Manufacturing consent without setting off the alarm bells of populace can be a delicate balancing act. But if a ruling class can pull this off, they have one of the most stable power structures ever conceived. And the detailing of this system has been a major focus of some people's work out there. But people don't listen to it. Oh, that's politics. It also seems to have been a bit of a waste, because the regime has decided now to throw it all in the trash bin. There's nothing subtle or delicate about the White House handling our explicit marching orders in public and the press falling all over each other to see who can comply first. Nothing subtle about that at all. No one needs a complicated theory of decentralized coordination when the elites are just announcing their collusion in public. Now, to be clear, there's still some value in understanding how the old system worked. And there's still many ideas and attitudes that the elites attempt to pass through their soft power networks, against which the right should be on guard. The common sense should be tuned in. The flow of power isn't as obvious as it might seem. The press give the Biden administration orders just as often, if not more, than the White House gives the orders to journalists. So what's become blindingly obvious is the ability of our elites to wield soft power, and that it's failing. And they have, in many cases, stopped going through the motions entirely. Pardon my cough and lack of using my cough button. That is the tail end of what's been going on in the last couple of weeks. with whatever this hacky chest virus has been. So, there's a number of different factors contributing to the collapse of the total narrative control by our ruling elite. The internet, while granting our evil overlords all kinds of terrible tools, is fundamentally an agent of decentralization. It breaks the monopoly of mass media that was once held by a tightly controlled network of television stations, news broadcasts, movie studios. While opposing voices can be and are regularly banned from major platforms, new dissident voices and outlets seem to emerge twice as quickly as they can be silenced. So despite the ludicrous amount of censorship that's regularly applied in venues like Twitter, the truth has a nasty habit of getting out. What is it? You've probably seen the quotes if you pay any attention at all. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., one of the quotes he has made, he says, "Never in the history of mankind have those governments that have censored the people been the good guys." The rapidly declining quality of our ruling elite is another matter altogether. Subtlety, nuance, and patience are the key factors necessary to the maintenance of soft power. The legitimacy of institutions, experts, and narratives has to be accumulated slowly and guaranteed and guarded carefully. The sophisticated elite wields soft power with a high degree of self-control. It's not for irate toddlers who wish to crush their enemies tomorrow. But our system has selected for conformity and compliance, not for intellect or discipline. Progressives have always been deconstructionists, but at least they used to produce thought-provoking works of art. Now all they're capable of is endless social justice sermons masquerading as comic book movie sequels. Our elites have managed to degenerate to unthinkable depths while simultaneously becoming more confident of their right to rule than any group in history. And it's no wonder they've gotten sloppy and obvious. They believe it is their, can't even say God-given with them, it is their given right, their inherent right to rule. We're in an interesting moment in this country right now when ruling elites who once relied on the subtlety and the finesse of soft power have become entirely incapable of operating the system their more talented predecessors established. We've lived our lives watching a show, the pantomime of a political process put on by those who sought to hide the real exercise of power. And that's a scary thing to realize, to come to terms with. But it also creates opportunities that did not previously exist. The comforting fictions of a free press that holds politicians accountable, or a public-private distinction that limits government power, simply cannot survive what has become blindingly obvious due to the incompetence of our leaders. While our elites are going to continue to put on the show for a while longer, their narrative control is slipping. And that creates new opportunities, both great and terrible, for the future. What do you think about that? I watched all these happenings this week with Biden, with the announcement of an impeachment inquiry. My first thought was there won't be an impeachment simply because now, have you noticed, even in the last few days, how much the press is reporting that all these politicians on the left are now coming over to the side and saying, look, it looks like Joe Biden's probably on his last legs here. It's like this is a well thought out plan. If you think they're being caught by surprise by anything, you would be mistaken. So you're going to see, my prediction when I heard about the inquiry was that there's no way to work around this. They can lie through it, but there's too much evidence. I'm going to see a lot of my liberal friends on the left, Democratic friends, all touting the innocence of Joe Biden. And as I said in one program earlier in this week, I said, just do this for me. When looking at all this stuff that's coming out right now, just interchange the names. Take out Biden and put in Trump. Just the name. Not actions, not personality, not attributes, nothing. Interchange the names and tell me how the country would react or how the left would react for the same exact things. You're seeing a non-committal to justice and to what is right. Doesn't matter anymore. So as I was listening to all this stuff this week, I said, Biden's never going to be impeached because they're going to pull him out before that. Professor Bauer says Biden versus Missouri ruled against the administration for censorship influence in social media last week. That's a huge win. I was going to talk about that tonight too, but we're almost out of time on the radio. We've only got a few minutes left for that. But I thought that was an astounding win against the Biden administration. Now, the Biden administration wants it to go to the Supreme Court. Why do you think the Biden administration wants to remove people? The people on the left want to remove certain members of the Supreme Court. They want Biden to be able to replace them. It wouldn't be Biden replacing them, by the way. It would be his people replacing them. So, yeah, it's the media in the White House perfectly. You're right, Anita Palmer. So, I think they're going to do their best to, if the heat starts coming on for impeachment, they'll take Joe Biden out. They'll have him. You'll hear an announcement, something that sounds something like Joe Biden getting up to the podium and saying, I'm getting old. No joke. No joke. And I think it's probably a better idea to step down and let some younger people take the place. If he doesn't get impeached, at least he's or resign, he's at least going to be not running again. But then again, I almost have to put a little caveat in that, or a little doubt, not caveat. That I think the people that are really running this country from the executive branch, it's not Biden. Those people don't care who's in office. They'll run Joe Biden again. If they can get away with it. If they can truss him up and put him in front of a camera every now and then, and even his screw-ups, they just laugh it off. What is Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House spokesperson? Joe Biden is a model of character and strength to all of us at the White House. It's like, what are you smoking? And she's smoking that cigar of, we got this, no matter what. People are going to believe whatever we say. So Joe Biden is either one. I thought earlier in the week, he's going to be, you're going to see it coming slow, but quicker than you might think. He's going to be asked to resign from his people, and he's going to have to do his thing and resign. Put Kamala in the office. Do you think for a minute they can't control Kamala too? The devil's lettuce, said Kelly Bell. Oh, that would be kind of nice. I'd feel good for Joe if he could have some of that. Biden will be gone by Thanksgiving, says Professor Bauer. I think you might be right. And that was my initial blush with all of this. That's how they also do away with impeachment. So I think you can still impeach a president who's no longer in office. You can impeach his reputation or his legacy or whatever. You can impeach in absentia. I think, but I'm not positive of that. But the idea is removal from office. I think the left doesn't want Kamala Harris in. That we know. I don't think the people running the White House care either way. Because they'll do whatever they need to do. So you need somebody in the office that's strong enough to be a leader. That's maybe the idealism in me. There is an idealism in me that says all that is necessary, as Edmund Burke said, for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And of course, he wrote that in a different day and age. You could say good people nowadays. That's what he meant. All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. And that's the truth. Folks, we got to get out of here for the radio audience. Radio audience, thank you for being here. We'll be back again on Sunday morning for It's Sunday. Hope to see you all here. And in the meantime, I would like you all to live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here. Well, and welcome to the captain's cabin, y'all. After reading the opening to The Pirate Hunter, I feel all piratey tonight. But welcome to the show. Thanks for listening to the radio program tonight. And I got things all out of kilter here tonight. Wow, look at that. And so I hope you enjoyed that show. It was quite a broad spectrum of things that we covered there. So Anita Palmer, by the way, I'm looking at some of these comments. She said, I used to work in the school system and tell people at home to homeschool if possible. Teaching has changed over the last few years. It's very sad to see what's happened over the years, especially in our institutions. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that. Who is the woman that is in the school system? She's some higher up in education. She came out and she had decried public choice or school choice. And then it's found out that she sends her own kid to private school. And she's the head of something in public schools. I can't think of who that is. Steve Clark asks, is there still a Robertson on Tuesdays? There is, Steve. The only problem is we have run into several weeks in a row of problems. We had, first of all, we took a couple of weeks off. Then Wendy got ill, and she spent some time recuperating from some things. And she was down for a little while. Then there were a couple of weeks where I was out for one reason or the other. And we thought, let's just give it a big break. Let's go a couple of months and we'll come back with a new season. And then we decided to do that. And the day we were going to relaunch for a second season, because we had broadcast for 6 months straight every Tuesday. And so we took a couple of weeks off. It turned into a couple of months. And then Wendy was still dealing with some physical issues. And then her dog, she had, as many of you have known for the last few weeks, has had some severe health issues. And Wendy's dog is all important to her. That is her life, her family. And it kind of knocked her out of things for a few more weeks. And so we are scheduled right now on my calendar. Steve, this is for you. Everybody write this down. Mark it down on your calendars. Tuesday, September 26th is going to be the beginning of the new season of Robertson. And so same time, Tuesdays, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. London time. Now, that might change by the time. No, I think in October, when we go to daylight savings time, October or early November, somewhere in there, the time will change on the British end. It'll be 5 in the evening, 9 in the evening when it's 5 here. Something like that. I've got it all screwed up. Anyway, you get it. So Tuesday the 26th, Steve, that's when we'll be back. So you can find us then. Of 2023, not 2034, like Field Guy says. So it's been a bad few months. She hasn't done her show, Wicked Women, either. And she's going to be back with her show the following Sunday or the Sunday before our Tuesday. I think the Sunday before our Tuesday, which would make it the 26th, 23rd. Sunday the 23rd is when I believe Wicked Women comes back. If you are invested in those shows. So that's still yet to come. Good question, Steve Clark. Thank you for asking. And so hopefully we've gotten over a lot of the traumas and the illnesses and the things like that have kept everybody down for the last few months for Robertson. All right, so that's coming. Damn fingers, says Barbie D. Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates. Thank you, Anita Palmer. That's her. Stacey Davis Gates is the one. She is the Chicago Teachers Union president who has denounced school choice on principle for parents, and yet she sends her own kids to private school. How about that? So that's a little bit of leftist hypocrisy right there for you. So unless you all need to be reminded, guess what? I am not a Republican. I vote Republican quite a bit, but I'm not Republican. I am a conservative, but I am you could call me, I'm a small c conservative with a constitutional bent. I am a small L libertarian, though I'm not part of the libertarian movement. And you could call me kind of a Jeffersonian liberal, which means I'm probably more conservative than I'm letting on. I do have some social issues that I'm fairly liberal on, and or that would fly in the face of some conservatives. It's like the issue of pot. Your standard conservatives are going to have a problem with that are out there. I don't have any problem with that. If you want to smoke pot, you smoke pot. Freedom over your own choices and your own body. If you want to drink, you can do that. Doesn't mean there's not consequences for abusing it or misusing it. Just means you're free to do it. It's a free country. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Abortion. I'm not an anti-abortionist, but neither am I a pro-abortionist. I am all for the state not setting legislation on abortion, but I am also for the state recognizing the viability of an unborn child. That's where you keep it. You extend constitutional rights to the unborn. All slippery slopes, tricky things to accomplish. I get that. So, Elderberry, you don't allow the damn mic to proxy your vote. That's why I'm not Republican. There you go. Oh, the damn RNC. I'm sorry, it looked like MC from here. Yeah, that's right. I don't want the RNC proxying my vote. So I will many times vote Republican because they're closer to my conservative ideals than Democrats. So it's the way it is sometimes, just the way it is. And I vote. I don't not vote because somebody's not down the line every point that I believe. I choose the candidate that in philosophy gets the closest to my core values. The closest to the core values that I think represent common sense and conservatism in this country. So that's how it works for me. So where do conservatives fall? I used to be a Dixiecrat from years ago. I don't know. Where do conservatives fall or fail? Did you say fall or fail? I'm not sure how you mean. Where do conservatives fall? I'm not sure, Anita, what you mean by that. What you're asking by that. Michael Brewer's here, hanging in the wings. I'm going to bring Michael in for a little bit here. Let's see, where is he? Right. How you doing, Michael?
Feeling it.
Good to see you.
Pretty good to see you. Yeah. Like
what's going on?
Trying to get my head to unstop up. Just trying to. I've been fighting it too. I don't know what it is. Like I said the other night, it's something in the air. I have a couple of hours where I feel really days, and the rest of it, I just feel.
I was down for a good week, just not feeling. It wasn't COVID. It had some of the same kind of things. I had this just achy chest and coughing, and I became just exhausted. I was just tired out for a week, and I was not very functional. And I thought, man, 40 years ago it wouldn't have hit me that way, I'm sure, but now it does. So, so I'm still fighting to come back from that. Doing better every day.
Yeah, it was so bad. I went and seen him. I told him, I said, I get 8-9 hours sleep, and I wake up feel like I've done a full day's work.
I know. I know. That's the way I was all last week, the week before. I'd get up in the morning. I'd go upstairs, make coffee, drive the kids to school. Then I get back home from driving them to school, and I felt like I got to go back to bed. It's been a full day.
Yeah.
So,
hey,
talk for a minute. I'm going to go get myself something to drink right around the corner.
Hey, yeah, I brought mine right here. No, you talking about how to vote. I've always been more libertarian. I figure, we take care of ourselves first. But if you say put America first, people get all upset, irritable. They say, oh, you want to forget about the other people. You can't take care of the outside until you take care of your own house. And I've always thought that. But no, but yeah, there's Scotty. He's got his flag. I got my flag over here. I got my other flag. But I was going to
flags look good.
I'm more libertarian. Yes, like I said, I got mine. That's what I tell them. I have more libertarian views than I do conservative views. I'm all about free market, and like I said, some of the things. When I talk to people about it, they're surprised. They're like, "Oh, you believe like that?" I was like, "Oh yeah," and they're like, "But you don't strike me, or you don't carry yourself." Oh, I have congestion. Also, yeah, I apologize. My nose is.
Yeah.
It feels like an elephant is stepping on my sinuses, but
yeah. I didn't get the sinus thing this time. When I had COVID, it felt like my sinuses were exploding. I haven't had any sinus problem with this. Just it was a dry cough for a week.
Yeah. Tiger Balm. That'll open you up. But no, it's, the pirates don't fly the Jolly Roger no more. They get elected into politics.
Yeah.
What's the old saying? Last winter, a guy said, he said, it was so cold, I've seen politicians with his hands in his own pockets.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Heard that on talk radio a couple of years back. Cold outside this morning, I saw a politician with his hands in his own pockets.
That's it. But my grandmother,
a Democrat with his hands in his own pockets. That's what it was.
Yeah. It's easy to give away somebody else's money. The Rock and Oprah both have gotten in a lot of trouble. They said, oh, look, we have pledged 10 million of your dollars. Now donate it to us. She's a billionaire. The Rock's worth 800 million. But they're going to pledge $10 million of your money. And there's a lot of backlash out for it.
Yep.
It's always easy to pledge somebody else's money.
It is.
I could tell anybody, hey, I'll pledge, $2 of Scotty's money. I'm not out nothing.
Yay.
But it's, I don't believe in many of the old Republican ideals, but I'm not so conservative that I can't agree with some of the, there's Uncle John.
Uncle John.
Hi.
Yeah, Uncle John. He's probably old enough to remember. But a Kennedy Democrat is more like our conservative Republicans now.
Yeah.
Because there's three presidents that said that they want to get rid of what was it? The revenue. Oh, what do you call it? The people that take care of all the money. Oh,
avast, Uncle John.
Hey.
Yeah, the Fed.
You inspired me.
There you go.
You got to get you an earring, put in your ear, let it hang down.
Need an earring, and you need a bird on your shoulder.
I was going to say, I don't even.
Are you scurvy dog?
I had a bird for supper.
Yeah. You got to get your cutlass out, John.
That sounds good. There you go. That's a cutlass.
Yeah, got to get your cutlass out.
Yeah. He's sitting in Dave's old bedroom. Tell me he doesn't have any swords around. There it is. That was the big rapier that Dave wore.
Yeah.
I'm seldom so fortunate as to have the proper props at hand.
That's right.
It's all about the props. But that's like I was telling. I hope I can stop reading this. He must be doing a swamp for tractor car repairs. What is it? He can call Grumpy Stacks. Grumpy come by and fix that thing in just a few
Grumpy
minutes.
Here? I thought I might have seen him earlier when I was talking, but I'm not sure now. Oh, by the way, speaking of props, there's one thing my love of antiquity and age-old things always makes me want to decorate my house or build up with old antiques and old things. And I love that look and that feel. But there's one thing where I've broken from that. And I've said there's one thing I want to do before I get too old to do it and enjoy it and play in it. And that is I wanted to build a full-scale replica in my, like an outbuilding of mine on my own land, of the original Star Trek sets from the original series. I'm talking the Bridge of the Enterprise from the 1966 series.
I was going to say, which Enterprise?
What's that? Yeah, which one? The original, the very original.
Yeah, which one?
From the mid 60s. And then I thought, well, maybe I'd upgrade that to the one from the movies, the Enterprise in the movies. Now you look at Captain Pike's bridge, and I go, oh, that'd be kind of cool to have. But in wanting to do that, Russ Haslage, who owns this radio station and owns TrekFederation.com, you can go see what they do. They have gotten they do community outreach and all kinds of things they do. Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, helped Russ found the Trek Federation 30 years ago. And so now Russ he's moving it out of their office location and moving his Federation headquarters into a mall location. Not a strip mall, a mall, a regular shopping mall location. And he's able to get that because he's also going to open up a store with it. So a collector's, a memorabilia store, all Star Trek stuff. And I was designing some of the, just did some designs for him of what the shop was going to look like. And that was just for his potential investors to put it out. I'm curious. I'm going to look while I'm doing this if I have any that I could actually show you. But so I was designing some of those. And then he came back to me a few weeks ago and said, you know, that corner where we're going to be building, there's an area inside the shop. It's an old Gap, I think it is the store they're in. He says, in that back corner, we were going to put a stage in there. It was about 20 by 20, something like that. It'd fill a big room. And stage, and they have the captain's chair, and put some murals on the walls, Star Trek murals. Now they're going to actually be building about a third of the original bridge set into that corner. It's going to house the chair. It's going to have the helm with the navigation and helm where Sulu and Chekhov always sat. It's going to have the upper tier with all the panels wrapped around the bridge and the turbo lift doors. They're building all of that with a partial ceiling that comes over it. And they're going to use that. What's that?
I have a question.
Excellent.
By any chance, David told me many stories of, I think from his time in Hollywood, he got to know a lot of people, about a formerly young man who Paramount got after because he was running a publication for fans about Star Trek. And what Paramount was going to shut him down. Yep. And Roddenberry came in and said, no, this is really good stuff. And actually got him off of space and got him. Well, is this the guy?
You are talking about, no, this is not the guy. You're talking about Dan Madsen.
Okay.
And many of my listeners have heard of Dan before. I've known Dan since probably 1982. And he was publishing the Star Trek official fan club magazine through Paramount. Color magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Dan, just by physical description, I've had him on the show before. Dan is a dwarf.
Okay, that is the guy.
Drawn into Star Trek when he was a kid. He's about my age. He was watching one of the ubiquitous reruns when he was a senior in high school or something. And it would happen to be the first episode he ever saw. He had no interest in it until he saw this. Was that episode from the original series entitled Plato's Stepchildren.
Oh, yes.
And in that episode was that very famous, and I don't remember his name, in the 60s, very famous dwarf that you saw in a lot of shows and a lot of movies. I can't remember his name. But
at the time, he was the only one casting people knew, apparently.
You're right.
Yeah.
That could be. And he was in this Star Trek episode, and there was a scene where Kirk is talking to him, and he says to him, he says, "Where I come from, and this was one of those important moral lessons being taught in Star Trek, was that where I come from, they don't judge you by your size and by the color of your skin and so on." It was one of those morality lessons of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And Dan saw that, and to hear him tell the story is just amazing. But that sold him on Star Trek, and he started doing the Star Trek fan club newsletter. And it was just a little Xerox thing. He'd fold it in half, staple it, charge like $5 a year or something. Can't remember what he charged. I was getting it back when it was that. And then he would get interviews with Gene Roddenberry. He got interviews with Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner, all these guys that were part of the show. And there was no publication like it out at that point. We were talking the early mid 1970s by the time Dan was doing this, and his high school days. And suddenly he gets a cease and desist letter from Paramount telling him he has to quit doing what he's doing, or they'll sue him because it's a violation of their copyright, their trademark. Well, he had talked to Gene Roddenberry already. He talked to Roddenberry about that. Roddenberry went to bat for Dan. And he said, "You got to let this kid do this." He said he does a very good, and so he stood up for him, and Roddenberry did. And Dan won the first license ever from Paramount to do a fan magazine. And so he did the Star Trek official fan club newsletter. Guess where he went from there? Many of you know this story already. From there, he went on and he met George Lucas. George Lucas gave him the Lucasfilms official magazine. Then he met with Spielberg, and he started meeting all these guys. He got the Indiana Jones official magazine. He got the Star Wars Insider magazine. He started building this magazine empire. And then, of course, and this is all, by the time I met him, 1982, this was all pretty well established. And I think one of the last magazine series he did was he got the Lord of the Rings magazines before, and he was doing all these products. He had a big memorabilia product line. Dan once had 150 people working for him in his warehouses and his offices. And then he sold it off a good 12, 13, 14 years ago, something like that. And now he still does some stuff with all that, but he's still a writer. He still does marketing and things like that, but and he's still got his hand in it. But that's Dan Madsen. That's the guy I'm talking about. And that's not the guy you were talking about.
Yeah.
But that's who Dan is. And so I've got a couple of pictures I want to show you. And I got to see, there was one last one I wanted to find here, and I don't have it in the right format, so I'll come back and find it. But when Russ came to me and said, we're going to get this mall space, will you do some drawings? And they're just basically thrown together. They're not all in perspective off of blueprints. I had to create what the store might look like digitally. So this is the first one I did for him. This is from the outside in the mall. We created a sign for it based on his logos, just put some merchandise in the windows. You've got the way back in the center, you've got the captain's chair. And I put murals on the walls of the old Enterprise and stuff. And as that started going along, he said, we need some more. Here's some more of what I want on the inside. So if you walk into the store, I then did this one. We still got the chair located in the center. And like the old helm on the old Enterprise bridge, I just did the colors on this, put the murals up behind, have merchandise hanging in there, and all of this and this. And then around the tops, around the soffits up above, we had all these mural graphics that we were putting up. And then it finally went to this was then the third one, looking the other direction. That corner back there, way in the back in the center, is a little stage. And he said, just put up a little stage. Let's do a backdrop of the old bridge and something of the Enterprise, which I'd put up there. And we'll have the chair. Maybe we'll move the chair over in there. But we'll have a little place where people can speak and lecture or read books and, whatever. Now that has all changed too. And this is where I've still got to find it. So look at that. So what Russ is building there now is part of the set of the original Enterprise. And this is going to be cool. He wants me to come down sometime in the next few weeks to come down there and help implement some of the stuff that's being built, work on some of that stuff. I'm going to see if I can find this particular, I don't remember what I named it. So I got to kind of scroll through some things here to find where I put this particular drawing. But let's see. And so he wanted me to take and create that stage area that you're looking back there as the bridge of the Enterprise. And let's see if I can find that particular piece of art. I got to see where I saved it. I've got floor plans. I've got some of their old stuff, their old hallways, the headquarters. I've got all these mall drawings, but I don't have the one that's got the actual bridge set in it yet. And I thought that I had named it Bridge Set. But so he's going to be building this down there. So now, while I'm not building it in my own outbuilding, I am going to get a chance to go down and see what they're going to be doing down there. And while I want to go, and I still want to get a trip together for everybody who listens to this show, Russ and I wanted to get a trip together and have us all go out and meet in New York and Ticonderoga to go see the rebuilt Star Trek sets out there. Huh. And those sets were, of course, being done by it was a guy named James Cowley. He got the original blueprints from the Desilu Studios, and he totally, from scratch, to every last little detail, rebuilt all the original sets from the 1960s TV series.
Oh my!
And it's become a museum and a tourist attraction in Ticonderoga, New York, of all places. Yeah. And so you can go up there and you can tour the sets. William Shatner was just there. He goes up there a couple of times a year and sits in the captain's chair on the bridge, and people pay to meet him and see him. And he has several of the stars from the shows, the different shows that'll come in and be part of it. And I'm having really bad luck finding this bridge set. So artwork that I did. So let me try one last thing while I'm still talking here. I'm going to see if we can find the bridge. Bridge interior. Let's see. Here it is. I found it. Now that I did a search for it, I have found it. Okay, let me open this up. And let me see if I've got it as a PDF. I don't. I have to convert it to a PDF so I can show it to you. Now, this is that same corner that you're looking at right there. And Russ said, let's revamp that whole corner. He said, Scotty, we are going to do a part of the original bridge set. And I said, outstanding. And so I worked this up for him. And let me load it in right now so y'all can take a look at it. And this, to me, this is exciting. I can't wait to see this in action. I've already seen he's been putting up some imagery. If you want to go join him, look for Russ Haslage, Haslage, on my friends page on Facebook. And if you join him, you'll be able to find some of he's starting to put some interior shots together as they're starting to build these sets now. And he's just got some of the basic flooring down on the raised platform for the captain's chair and all of that. But here's what my rendition of what this set is going to look like in their store. And it's from the same angle that you see right here in this picture, looking back into that corner. And instead of having the murals on the walls and the little stage with a chair and a mic and a podium, this is what will be built there now. That right there. So, and we originally had wanted the pillar that's in there, permanent pillar, dressed up to look like one of the warp cores. That's not part of the bridge, but you can see the bridge set back there with the 4 stations along the 3 stations on the left and 1 on the right. And then the turbo lift doors are going to open up. There will be a turbo lift built into there. And then the captain's chair and helm and navigation. So this is what Russ is doing at the Federation headquarters. And this is out in the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio area is where Russ is located. So this will be fun to have another. They'll use that to rent out. Imagine the geeky Star Trek fans that are going to want to rent this stuff out to go have a little event there.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be an event center as well. And some of the stars that he can get in to visit that place. I think it's going to be fantastic. So there, all of that came off of talking about my friend Dan Madsen.
All right.
And
all right, Uncle John, who's your captain?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's your captain?
Who's your captain? Who's your captain?
Yeah, who's your captain?
Talking about the old sets, when it was in its early years of
thank you,
replay.
Barbie.
Yeah.
Go ahead, keep talking, John.
I came home from work. Dave and Steve were watching the show. Dad was vegetating in the room, not really paying attention. And I walked in while we were sitting in the conference room. And before any dialogue came out, I said, "This is the one where," and I described it. And Dave goes, "Yeah, that's the show." And Dad says, "How did you know that?" I said, "Well, the lighting and the order of the seats." And he said, "If you've seen it that many times, why do you want to watch it?" I said, "Old friends."
Yeah, pretty much.
It has a lot to do with it. Old friends.
Absolutely.
So Kurt's your captain.
By the way, I think since I'm talking about all of this, I want to show you something here. I'm going to share my screen with you. And we'll say entire screen, boom, boom. Now you're going to see this little crazy effect right there. But this is the website. It looks a little lackluster there because I pasted an announcement on the front. But this is, you can go to StarTrekTour.com. And this is the website of the guy who built all these Star Trek sets at the Desilu Studios. Let's see if I've got some about us photo gallery. Let's see what he's got up in the photo gallery. Here's some of the sets. Now this is all. Oh, can you open them up now these days? Maybe you can't. Open image and new tab. Okay. So you can see. That's all the bigger I can show you. But these are some of the sets. This is one of the this is the main corridor set out of the original. Their bridge set, of course. There it is, nice and big and beautiful right there. That is their bridge set. and this is what you're seeing there is almost what Russ is going to be building at his store in Ohio.
Uh-huh.
But there's the bridge set at this set reconstruction site. You've got the transporter room, of course, right here. There it is. These are all the sets that are built up in Ticonderoga, New York. And they went right off of the old blueprints. They've got engineering, too. A better place to look at these sets than this is if you go to here and search. We're going to search for, I'm in my Instagram now. We're going to search for Star Trek Tour. See how they've got that up right there. Boom. Okay, here's their Instagram. This is a great place to take a look at what their stuff looks like. Because they put stuff up all the time. So, like, here's some of their shots of the bridge. That's where they're located. That's what their location looks like in Ticonderoga, the outside of their building. And you can see the look for detail that they've given. There's Spock's station on the original bridge. Jonathan Frakes. Some of the old costumes they've got in there. There's Jonathan Frakes, who played number 1 in Next Generation.
Yeah.
They've got all these guys come and visit these sets. That's James Crowley on the right. His hair is that way because his profession, he's an Elvis impersonator. And he's taken all his money and built this stuff. Sick bay. Let's see. Jonathan Frakes again. You see some of the sets. I'm just going through their pictures. Sick bay.
One of my favorite things about Enterprise was how everybody hated the idea of getting on the transporter.
Yeah. Well, especially Dr. McCoy. Scatter my atoms across the universe.
Enterprise, the series. The Vulcans had given them some transporter technology, and none of them wanted to use it.
Right. It was Jonathan Frakes, John Delancey, who played Q, and of course Brent Spiner, who played Data. They've all been special guests at these sets. Here's groups Data's will come in like this and pose their groups on the sets. I'm looking for their engineering set. There's the Jeffries tube on the bottom.
Yeah.
I am looking for specifically there's William Shatner on the bridge. Yeah. There he is.
He don't look bad to be 182 years old.
Yeah, really. He looks pretty good for being that old. There's the set with James Cowley, who owns it.
Yeah, like I said, how old is William Shatner? He has to be in his 90s.
He's 92. He's 92.
That's what I'm saying. And I know Patrick Card. He's in his 90s, and he still did really, really good.
I think he's in his late 80s, mid to late 80s is where he is now. Yeah. I'm looking for the engineering set. So I'm just scrolling through. Folks, enjoy these pictures. If you liked Star Trek, there is Kirk's personal quarters that are part of this set. And all the props, they try to find props, or they make props that are match things that were found in the old series. He's got quite a collection, I guess. Here, I'm going to keep scrolling through some of this. See if we can see.
Oh, that was Jack Crusher.
The bridge. This is people that just stop in. Here's engineering. This is only part of engineering, though. I wanted to find their one. You can see how nice these sets look. There's a bunch of people on the bridge. Let's keep going. I'm going to back out of this. There's a nice picture of the bridge from the slightly different angle. Spock, his station was back there. Let me get out of these pictures. Let me just scroll through and see if he's got some of his There's Lucille Ball, by the way. She is considered to be the savior of Star Trek because she and her husband Desi, they own Desilu Studios. And when Star Trek was rejected by CBS at first, she gave it another fighting chance, and they did the second premiere episode with William Shatner, and that's where it took hold. Yeah. So let's see. I'm looking for engineering because I want you to see what they built here. They've got the shuttlecraft.
Oh yeah, gotta have the shuttlecraft.
Oh, they started building some next generation stuff. Look at this. They're going to do the next generation sets next.
They were always mindful of the budget on TOS.
Yes.
They came in from props to the great Bird of the Galaxy's office and showed him the
Roddenberry, of course.
Yeah, they showed him the pepper shakers they'd made for the crew lounge, and he goes, "Nobody's going to know what those are." And so what they wound up doing was going down and grabbing some out of the commissary.
Yes.
Because if it isn't broke, why would they fix it?
Why fix it?
He says, don't lose those. They'll be Bones instruments.
Briefing room.
Be as surgical instruments. So the futuristic salt and pepper shakers became medical tools.
Became medical surgical equipment on the original series.
Yeah.
There's the bridge. I'm getting close. This is part over here, part of the engineering set. But I want you to see what it looks like all lit up. I'm surprised they don't have more pictures of that in here. Hang on. Because that was a glorious set they were talking about having built. Oh, there's the briefing room.
Yep.
I mean, you can just see how well done these sets are. And folks, if you're watching this and you're not into Star Trek, I'm sorry, but I make no apologies.
Yeah,
Did you know
Captain Kirk was like the guy with the big TV to start out with? William Shatner was considered. He's like put it on
part of the engineering.
Probably in this group, it's a stupid question, but do you know the story about the Orion slave girl?
Depends on which story you're asking.
Okay.
There's
when they filmed her, by the way, of course, she was a green humanoid.
Yep.
And they weren't sure how green to make her, so they shot some test footage and sent it into the lab, and it came back, and they're running the film, and she's pink as could be. So they reformulated the makeup and shot another set of footage and set it in, and she comes back just beautifully pink. Yeah. So they darken it down even more, shoot another set, and set it in, and she comes back perfectly pink. And they finally, I don't know what we can do. They called the lab and said, we've got this problem. We keep taking this green girl and making her more and more green. And they all come back pink, and they go, you've got a green girl? Oh, thank God. They said, we thought we had a problem with our chemistry and equipment, and we've been working like hell to get her back to a pink hue.
Oh, no.
So I read that in The Making of Star Trek in...
Yes, I've read that book. I read that book when I was in middle school.
Oh, I was then I must have been in high school.
Early 70s to mid 70s.
Yeah, I must have been in high school.
Of color, this is Matt Jeffries, who created all the sets for Star Trek, the original series. Yeah. This is how it looked in color, but this is how they had to be mindful how it was going to look in black and white, which most Americans had black and white TVs.
Yeah.
When I first saw Star Trek, I didn't know it was a color show. And so it rendered the way you see it on the bottom.
Yeah.
And of course, Pike's original bridge in the first 1965, the first premiere episode, it was all in battleship grays and blues, his bridge, grayish blues, because they wanted it to look like a military. They were emulating a military battleship for the Starship. But then when they came back with William Shatner in the new premiere, they had changed it all to the bright reds on the doors and the railings and stuff like that, because now television was in color. It was the new emerging thing. So they started doing all this bright, brilliant color on everything. And that's why they use so many reds and things like that in the series. And remember the original uniform jerseys that they wore? They were all this kind of pale gold color, almost a beige, a pale tan gold color, with no black collar. It had the ribbed collar. When they came back, they did one episode with Kirk and Spock. The new premiere was using those uniforms. The very next episode, they went to the red, the gold, the greenish gold, and the blue for the uniforms because of the Technicolor. And they said, let's spruce this up a bit. So
I want to know with the unitard. That's what I want to know. But that was next
the unitard.
Yeah, the unitard. Yeah,
that's what they wore in the Next Generation.
Yeah.
So anyway, there it is, folks. There is and we will plan this again for the listeners of this show. We will plan another trip that's going up there. And we're getting to that point in the show right now, by the way, where we're dropping in viewers because it's getting late and this is not everybody's cup of tea. So we'll wrap up pretty soon here.
11 o'clock your time.
It's 10 minutes to 11 right now.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're going to start wrapping her up. NBC Field Guy. Yeah, they're CBS now. Sorry. Field Guy wasn't around when his first run. I saw my first Star Trek episode when I was probably, I want to say 6 because of the house where I lived in my memory. I remember when we moved, but it would have been, if I was 6, that would have been 1965. So Star Trek didn't premiere until 1966. Yeah. So, and it was the episode Shore Leave. So depending on what Star Trek Shore Leave air date. I want to see when this aired. December 29th of 1966. So yeah, I was 5 when that aired because it turned 6.
What made me a Star Trek
No, I was
fan?
6 when that aired. That was the first episode I ever saw was Star Trek, the original series in its original run, the episode Shore Leave. And I was transfixed by it. I only saw a bit and piece of it, but I was 6 years old in its original run.
Well, we'll be all right as long as they don't do a strafing run.
Yes,
that's right, which was part of that episode. You remember that?
Yeah.
So
I was going to tell you what made me a Star Trek fan was my dad. He forbid it. He said, "Oh, that stuff would never come." He said, "You're living in a fantasy land." You know what? I'm 51 years old now, and a lot of the technology that they showed in the 60s, 70s, and 80s has come to pass. Your CT scanners, your MRIs.
Because somebody watched an episode and they said, "We could do that."
Do that.
You know,
there's a book out about the science and tech of Star Trek and how it influenced so many different scientists and innovators.
Here's my personal communication device.
There it is.
You know what I'm saying? But I'll tell you what, his little flip communicator looked a whole lot like a Motorola phone back in the day that we probably all had. You flipped down.
Yep, I had one of those.
And you know, that's what I was telling you. And Gene Roddenberry,
that whole shelf up there, you can see all of my Star Trek stuff up there.
Aha.
See the Enterprise is there. See the nacelle and the disc. There's some action figures. Where I'm trying to do this so you can see on the camera. There's
when
Kirk.
flip phones started coming out,
My
I was
phasers,
talking.
my communicators are all back there. So
I was talking to a representative that came in the store I was managing, and he was showing me the flip phone that they were going to introduce. I said, "Do you want to sell 5 times more of those than you ever would?" He said, "Well, of course." And I said, "When it opens up, it should chirp."
should chirp. Yep.
Or else it should ring with a chirp.
Which I've shown this before, but I've got one of those. I think
And
be close to
apparently they couldn't get the licensing.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
But can you imagine how many people would have gone, "Oh, I got to have that"?
It's the
If
communicator.
you opened it up and it goes, dit, dit, dit.
Here. Well, I didn't
Yeah.
flip it the right way, but there's the chirp
Yeah.
when you flip it open. And it was push button back when this came out about, God, this came out 35 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So there it is. And it's got the little,
Oh,
that one's burned
I
out.
love that stuff.
Yep. So
like I
that
said,
was my
what was
Star Trek communicator.
I have no idea how much of David's personality my love of science fiction warped.
Yeah.
What was it? Majestic 12 or something? They're supposed to have like Gene Roddenberry and all them where they, I heard something. They said he got a lot of his ideas because he was actually a part of this group of like 12 different people. He was talking like to an extraterrestrial or whatever bunch. Then, and that's where he got a lot of his ideas for like the personal communicators for, being able to
Probably. I'm not as well versed on all of that stuff as I probably should be.
Yeah. That was one of the big conspiracies that said him and
Me
like
too, Anita Palmer.
But yeah, they said that's where he got a lot of his ideas because it was like Majestic 12 or something other. It was like him and George Lucas and all that. Yeah, I can't remember how it really goes. Like
I don't think he got his ideas from Lucas.
No, Lucas was part of the 12.
I don't know. I don't know much about that, unless it's just a group they're referring to that didn't interact with each other, but this is this group of all these innovators for these TV shows and stuff. I don't know.
They said it was all part of the
I could be wrong.
I'm like, yeah, look it up. It was like he was supposed to belong to like this group. And they always say, if you put it out on TV, you kind of, what's the word? Destimulate people like the aliens are now. Now the government's coming out and say, "Oh yeah, we have aliens here," and nobody believes it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but I thought hell, Kurt was out there smashing alien.
That's right.
Long ago. That's the reason Kurt's my cat. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was a man's man.
Folks, I'll let you know if we plan another trip to go out to Ticonderoga. But in the meantime, Russ is working on this.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun. I can't wait to see that done. I'll definitely be out there to see that being put up and all the details of that. I would still love to build one of those myself.
Yeah.
So one of these days.
Oh no, we have to let Uncle John hold the keys to the liquor cabinet and drive us around. He looks like he's very trustworthy. Because,
Scotty, did you catch on the news the bit about the Mexican aliens from the mine?
Yeah, I saw.
I don't know what to make of that.
I didn't look at it in close detail. I heard all about it. I didn't look at it. I didn't look at the pictures of it. I've heard about it.
The pictures didn't look all that impressive.
No. And if they were real, they might not look all that impressive.
That's true.
I've seen dead, shriveled bodies of animals, and you go, "That was a badger." It looks like a dead squirrel, flattened out. And so things look different. I've seen.
They need to trot out some anthropologists from around the world and get some MRIs and DNA going.
Yeah,
definitely. So who knows?
It would be more fun if it turned out, man, there's almost nothing here that matches.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to be very skeptical about stuff like that.
Yeah, me too. There's too much fakery out there. The funny thing is that it got all the way into, was it Mexican? Was it Parliament or some kind of governmental?
Something like that. Yeah, they showed bodies.
What would be a Senate hearing here.
Maybe they wanted their share of our hearings on UFOs.
Maybe they did. So who knows?
Yeah. I have no idea.
On that note,
what is it? Not UFOs now. What do they call them? They got another name for them now. They're like unidentified
UAPs.
Yeah.
Aerial phenomenon.
Yeah.
Unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Yeah. That's
So on that note, we're going to wrap for tonight, guys. I'll be back on Sunday morning for It's Sunday, pending any mishap or anything like that. Tomorrow, I think we're going to spend a day ripping up old carpet in our house. Rainey and I got a little bit of a tax return, so even after all the complaining and all the stuff, we got about a quarter of what we should have gotten. But we went out and we bought flooring for the upstairs. We splurged a little bit. We found some good laminate flooring. It looks like old rustic wood. And we got it for under $1 a square foot, which is pretty good.
That's not
pretty
bad.
good. It was on deep sale. We got it at Lowell's. We bought it, and we bought our underflooring wrap and all that. So we're gonna tear out the old crappy carpet that's been here since we moved in, and it was crappy and stinky when we got here. We'll walk into the house now. And if we have the windows open, since the air conditioning's been off, since it started cooling down a little bit, and the house stinks. It smells of old stale cigarettes. Now, I've always been a smoker, but I don't smoke in the house for one single reason. I don't want my house to smell like cigarettes. And Rainey used to smoke too. We never smoked in the house. And I will say right now, it's been 2 weeks since I've had a cigarette. Not because I went out to consciously quit, but my chest was so inflamed from whatever that virus was. If I smoked a cigarette and lit it up, I was coughing a jag. And I just said, I can't smoke during this. And I just stopped. And now I'm 2 weeks in, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to not go out there and light one up right now. Not that I don't want to, not that I don't like it. Just don't want to do it now. So I'm not smoking right now, but that's an aside. The carpet just stinks. It stinks like old animals, even though they cleaned the carpet for us twice before we moved in. And we came in and hired a service and had it totally redone. The whole upstairs, the whole main floor is all carpeted. And it's all crappy old carpeting. And so we're just going to tear it out of the main room and the hallway and put down this laminate wood flooring. Looks like old rustic wood. And that'll be nice. So we'll probably be working on that tomorrow.
You'll be able to slide through in your stocking feet without pants like the movie.
That's right. That's right. So I think that's going to change the complexion, and it's going to get that old, nasty old carpet. I don't care how many times you wash old carpeting. After
risky business.
At a certain point, it's done. And this stuff is done. It's dingy, icky. We made the house look nice when we moved in, but the carpet has always been an eyesore. And it looked clean, but it was old, and you guys all know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, we do, Morgan Snow. We need warp drive. So,
feeling very
other than that, that's all I got. I'm going to let you brothers go. Michael, I'll see you later. Thanks for being here tonight. I'll talk to you.
Good night to the faces we did not see.
That's right. Those of you we did not see, good night. And John, John, good night to you as well. I hit the button before I said good night. So everybody, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back on Sunday morning with It's Sunday. And that's all I got for tonight. So I hope you had a good time. I miss Uncle Dave. As fun as Uncle John is to have around, and Michael, I miss Uncle Dave. I miss our talks when we sometimes would go 2 and 3 hours past the radio show late into the night. We had those deep conversations here. So we'll get back to those again. And so in the meantime, everybody, you take care of yourself. And we'll see you next time. We'll see you Sunday morning. So for now, live long and prosper.